What is up, guys? It's your boy Hex and Shadow and Number Zero, and today we're going to be reviewing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
There's two sides to me about this movie. One, decent movie, definitely the best one out of the new trilogy they were making, and all around it was good fan service. I really liked how much lightsaber action and just Force abilities that were in it. It just felt like a Star Wars movie. But the other side of me says, where does that leave Anakin Skywalker?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel a lot of the same stuff, but as I'm looking at the movie, I just feel like it's a very forgettable movie. I feel like people will still be talking about the original trilogy and even the prequels for a long time, and I just don't think people are going to be talking about this movie down the road. The music, doesn't do anything on its own. It's good music, it's still Star Wars music, it's just nothing new or exciting. The lightsaber fights, there's nothing memorable. Like, I think there's 7 lightsaber fights is what I heard from someone, but there's no fight that I'm like, wow, remember, like, compare that to Obi-Wan versus Anakin, or Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon, or Vader versus Luke. There's no fight. We got like 4 fights of Kylo versus Ray, and none of them am I like, man, that was one of the coolest fights in Star Wars history.
I did think it was cool though how Ray did that backflip over the like water that was coming
shit!
in.
Spoiler alert! By the way,
I thought we were doing spoilers.
I would hope it's obvious. It's probably in the title, but anyways, okay.
I thought it was cool when Ray did that backflip over the wave on the other side of the Death Star, and then Kylo's just walking through it, like, and you see his lightsaber fading in from the water, and then he's just walking through it.
Yeah.
And the water just hitting him, he just doesn't care.
He gave 0 fucks.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was cool, and I mean, that would be the fight in my mind. That's the lightsaber fight. And then obviously the final fight wasn't really a lightsaber fight so much, but
yeah.
Still, I just don't think that one, when you make a top 10 best fights in Star Wars history, that one's not even going to beat like Yoda versus Count Dooku. Mm-hmm. And that fight lasted like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That was like me the first time I tried to have.
Now, I personally think Revenge of the Sith is personally my favorite movie, but I do think that Rise of Skywalker it tops definitely 1 and 2. It's definitely better than the prequels except for Revenge of the Sith.
Definitely number 1. I feel like I need to rewatch number 2 to be sure, but yeah, probably.
And that's also another thing I feel is that I remember Attack of the Clones, and if I were to watch the whole series again, I'd definitely watch it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it. I wouldn't sit down one night and just be like, oh, I'll watch it. But Rise of Skywalker, I could sit down and watch.
So this is the thing though when it comes to Attack of the Clones, and this is why I say I need to rewatch it, because I know if I rewatch it, the whole Sam Wessel, whatever that first assassin, that whole assassin thing in Coruscant, I don't care. The chase scene, I don't care. There's the whole Jango Fett's cool, but in retrospect, does it matter? Not really. So the build-up though to the Battle of Geonosis and that whole thing, and if you're watching it, and maybe it's nostalgia, that's the other thing. I need to check my nostalgia a little bit when I'm thinking of it. The idea of that movie sets up the clones. And you're watching, you're like, wow, that's where the stormtroopers come from. It set up all this stuff, and it started the Clone Wars that they mentioned in the first, like, episode 4, and it builds the Republic and sets the stage for the fall of everything. And they show the plans for the Death Star. So that movie is just like oh my god, that's where all this stuff began.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's an important movie, but this movie definitely better than Phantom Menace. The fight between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul, still the best. Like, better than that one fight makes that movie, better.
Yeah.
But in the sense that the rest of the movie, nobody cares.
Yeah. So that's definitely where I'd rank it. I would definitely rank it into one of my movies to watch. Like, I would rank it pretty high, but
I wouldn't be upset if someone ranked it above 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But I would definitely be like, better than Revenge of the Sith? I don't think so, man.
Personally, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. That's where everybody's at their peak, and then all of a sudden it all just falls.
Yeah.
So Definitely not better than Revenge of the Sith. I wouldn't say it was better than any of the classics. However, I could probably argue about New Hope just because, yes, that's setting everything up and that's supposed to hook you in, but it's also Rise of Skywalker has a little bit more action than New Hope. And to be fair, New Hope is old.
A New Hope is slow and all that.
But
plus the idea, the hero's journey that's set up, and the way that the formula for that movie is now 30, 40 years later is just tired. Like we all know, okay, cool, yeah, he's a farm boy, he goes on his mission, he has to go get the thing, the old man dies, and then he goes and fights, Darth Vader. And that doesn't even have a good lightsaber fight to begin with.
No.
So the whole space.
It could have been changed. I mean, if it was made now, Obi-Wan and Darth Vader probably had a lot longer fight, a lot more acrobatics, and it probably would have been better if it was made now. But A New Hope, I probably still put that above Rise of Skywalker. However, I could probably argue it, but it's definitely not better than Empire or Return of the Jedi.
And I think that's the thing, is like the fight between Kylo and Ray in this movie. If you take that fight, the energy, the level of acrobatics, they stayed pretty much in that one area. They just walked that straight hallway, right? Mm-hmm. So you take that and transplant that into A New Hope and make that the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight. Same thing, two people, one space, going left and right. There's not an overabundance of acrobatics or anything. It's mostly standing on your feet and fighting. There's a little bit of flipping or whatever. And then by the end of it, someone gets, spoiler alert, stabbed, right? Mm-hmm. And so you do that to the Obi-Wan. And that would make that fight better. It's still not the most memorable fight. It's not anybody's favorite. So to me, that's what I'm getting at with this movie. I'm like, okay, so it's just kind of forgettable. Like, nobody really cares. The only thing that was memorable about it was what happens after the fight's over, and the 2 or 3 things that happens immediately after that, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. The only thing that was really memorable about Rise of Skywalker was probably when Palpatine comes in, and you're just seeing crazy Force abilities on one side, and then Kylo and Ray are working together. Spoilers. Kylo fighting the Knights of Ren. Another spoiler is when Ray hands Kylo a lightsaber through the teleporting it to him through the Force bond. All that stuff was all a memorable part. Just how dark of a movie it really was. Definitely the darkest movie.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of into. I'm more of a Sith person than I am Jedi, but just because I always found more interest in it.
And I really like the story of Rey and how she's a good person trying to do good things and feels like that tug of the dark side, but in the end, like the whole point of her story is, rebuking that and choosing to be, on the light side. So I resonate with that. I like that. But I think our general feelings for the movie, it's not a bad movie. It's, as a Star Wars movie, we liked it because it hits all the things you want. You want space battles, you want lightsaber fights, you want mystical uses of the Force, and it doesn't do anything that really upsets me in the sense of storytelling. There's no Jar Jar Binks that's there just to annoy you. There's no Canto Bight 30-minute scene that's just like, the fuck are we doing? And there's nothing, even the story, even the way they do it, I'm sure there's going to be people, and there are people who really don't like the revelation of her being a Palpatine and all that. But at the end of the day, as long as you're not like, I feel like you're just a balanced person and you're not going into it with all these expectations, that's not the end of the world. That's not the worst decision they've ever made.
Name a Star Wars movie that you can't criticize.
Right.
They all have
something.
Yeah. But it's okay because it's just a series that we all love.
Right.
And one day, I believe that Rise of Skywalker will be a memorable movie. People will love it. Just right now, and
I never thought. Yeah.
And the heat of Last Jedi, that kind of brought a lot of people saying, this is gonna be bad, and they were going in with a bad mindset, which I did too. I hated the Last Jedi, and I went in with a bad mindset. We were joking about it before. There were some people I went to go get drinks, and were like, "Holy shit, they're already leaving."
Yeah. Well, and I never thought that people would ever like the prequel movies. The people who were always bashing on it and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think still, if you go and rewatch it, you're like, Jar Jar Binks.
I would watch one. I wouldn't.
I don't. It's boring to me.
I could watch Attack of the Clones perfectly fine. I can watch Revenge of the Sith perfectly fine. That's probably the movie I've watched the most, actually.
Revenge of the Sith. Attack of the Clones is one that I don't have a problem watching. But even that, there's scenes in that movie where I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I don't care.
And even in my favorite one, Revenge of the Sith, there was even that boring stuff. I was getting annoyed by the whole stuff at the beginning with General Grievous and all that. Like, going back and watching it's quite boring.
Yeah. But either way, so general, I don't think people really hate the movie as much as the internet is wanting you to think that they hate it right now. Because people that I've talked to, I haven't heard anyone really, unless you're a YouTuber or whatever, normal people that I've gone and talked to, nobody's been like, man, I just hated that Star Wars movie. It's not like Last of the Jedi, and it's not like Game of Thrones Season 8 that just completely ruined the whole series for you.
And
it's a decent finish.
Force Awakens as well was a decent movie as well, and J.J. Abrams kind of repeated a lot of stuff, but we don't really think about that now. Nobody really talks about that anymore.
I think Episode 8 just did so much wrong that it's just
trashed that whole series.
It's just tainted the whole thing. But I will say, it's not necessarily how I would have wanted it to end, but my problems with the movie that I do have stem from more of a filmmaking stance and less of a Star Wars stance. Star Wars, good movie, love it, probably will rewatch it. Filmmaking, there's a couple things I'm like, what were you guys thinking?
Yeah.
So I think at this point we're just going to go to scene by scene and kind of break it down to the best of our abilities as the movie kind of played out, and just talk about what we thought scene by scene. So
one more thing I wanted to say real quick before we jump onto that was that if you took someone who just knows about Star Wars, know about the Luke, I'm your father, knows what a lightsaber is, knows what the Force is, but isn't really like into the universe like you and me are,
right?
I believe you could set them down and watch Rise of Skywalker and they would love it.
Yeah. I don't think they would have a problem understanding. It's not like they pulled a bunch. Now, if you do know more about the universe, and let's say you're watching The Mandalorian, and you've seen, again, spoiler alerts for Mandalorian,
and Rise of Skywalker.
It's Skywalker. But Mandalorian episode 7, which came out three days or so before it came out the night before.
Mm-hmm.
It came out the night before the Thursday first showings. They show Baby Yoda doing some Force healing. So if you've seen that stuff, that's kind of cool, because you connect the dots there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen it, you haven't lost anything. Anyone who hasn't watched The Mandalorian didn't miss anything, any major revelations. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. So the first thing we have is a text scroll, pretty typical of Star Wars. Has every movie had a text scroll? Oh, yes. Every main saga did. But I want to say it was either the Han Solo movie or Rogue, or maybe both of them. One of those didn't have a text scroll because they were subverting expectations.
I don't remember.
Positive it happened. But in the main 9 movies, they all have text scrolls. So anyways, the text scroll, to me, was a little fucked up because, as I explained to him, because we've talked about this before, is every text scroll has been, you watch like episode 1, you get a text scroll, it kind of sets up the stage. You watch the movie and you go to episode 2, and even though 10 years has passed, it explains like, hey, here's what's happened to your characters since then, and this is where we're at. It kind of gives you a brief catch up, and then you watch the movie and you're like, okay, cool, I see that. This one text scroll, it just came out of left field. It's like, Emperor's back. He's broadcasting to everyone, hey, I'm alive and I'm coming for you all. Ray is off training with Leia, who now is a Master Jedi, which that's not a huge gripe for me. And Kylo Ren is raging across the galaxy in search of whatever. And you're like, whiplash, like, did I miss something? Like, where did this come from? Even like episode 2, which sets up Count Dooku and introduces that character in the, it says something like the nefarious Count Dooku is doing this, and you're like, oh, there's Count Dooku. That wasn't, I don't know, it's just out of nowhere because you never talked about that Emperor in 7 or 8, and then all of a sudden, Emperor's back, and if you were, again, someone who's just watching the movies for the first time, and you're going through, you would have whiplash, like they would say, like, wait, what? They haven't, the guy from episode 6?
Yeah,
the one who died?
Yeah, if you're starting from episode 7, let's say you're just a new watcher, you haven't watched Star Wars before, but you have some idea of it, like I was mentioning earlier, people who know what the Force is, people who know what a lightsaber is. If you're starting from episode 7, The Force Awakens, you watch 7, 8, and 9, and all of a sudden, I honestly think the text scroll immediately said the first thing was Palpatine's back.
And I'm like you're saying, there's 2 different sides to that, where I'm saying, like he's saying, if you're just watching 7, 8, 9, and that's the first Star Wars experience. You're like, who? You know? And you probably know who, but you're still like, where did that come from? Because it's not talked about at all in 7 or 8. And then text scroll for the first thing you see in number 9, Emperor's back, by the way, bitches. And you're like, what? But even if you know Star Wars and you started watching, or if you watched 1 through 6 first, and then you get to 7, there's no Emperor. No even hint of an Emperor. 8, no Emperor. No talk of an Emperor. 9, text scroll, Emperor's back. Yeah. It just feels like it was shoehorned in there. So, and then it doesn't help that the next 30 minutes of the movie is sprint.
It definitely needed to be a longer movie.
It needed to be, it's one of those things where like The Hobbit split into like, it took one movie and tried to split it into 2 and became too long. This was 2 movies they put into 1, and that's because J.J. Abrams, the director of 7 and 9, he's trying to fix what Rian Johnson did. But it's just the speed. And like I said, you look at episode 5, and they spend the first like 30 minutes on Hoth. One planet setting up a thing. Revenge of the Sith, they start in Jabba the Hutt's palace. Even episode 2, even episode 2, they're doing the whole Coruscant, protect Padme, assassins are coming thing. So there's a little bit of drama, but it's one planet. You're not jumping all over the fucking galaxy. And even episode 3, where they start out with space battle, and we have to save the Chancellor, and there's action, you're in it, and you're okay with it. Like, it's not jumping everything. You know where you're at. You're like, okay, I'm in a space battle, we're trying to save the Chancellor. Yeah. And yeah, you're spending 30 minutes doing it, and it's action, but it's one streamlined action. And then after that, what happens? The movie slows down. Yep. It introduces Padme again. You get a breather.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This movie is like, all right, we're with Kylo here, and he's on this planet. He's killing motherfuckers, and then he's going to jump over here, and now he's with Palpatine, and we're going to get that story, and then we're going to jump to Rey, and then we're going to jump to Poe and Finn, and then they're going to get all on the same planet, and then after 30, 45 minutes, you finally are like, okay, we're all together now in one place, and it's not jumping around as much, and I kind of understand what we're doing.
What did you think about the humor inside of Rise of Skywalker?
So, I'm personally okay with the humor. I think there was only one joke maybe that kind of felt like I was like, okay, whatever, right? Most of their jokes were at least somewhat funny or somewhat humorous, even though I didn't laugh out loud. Like all the 3PO stuff, maybe that was a little heavy-handed. Like they really made him the funny character, but that's all right. I've come to expect that from Star Wars movies and Disney movies because they did that at Marvel a lot.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say was, I do see two sides of it as well, because none of the other Star Wars movie really had funny moments.
Nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
That's definitely a quality of the sequel trilogy.
But if you're going to sit around and complain that it ruined the movie, and I honestly believe that most of the people who watched Rise of Skywalker and sat through all the Star Wars series probably more than likely also watched all the Avengers series.
Right.
And the first hour of the Avengers movie was just jokes. It was just a comical laughter, and people loved it. Mm-hmm. And they kind of did that through all the jumping and mess, which maybe it was just poor timing because you have all the humor jumping around. Maybe that's the case, but it didn't bother me. I didn't really think it diffused the movie at all.
I don't either. And I think Marvel did it better than Star Wars. I think like Thor Ragnarok is a hilarious movie.
I did think there was a couple of jokes in there that I didn't really want though in Thor Ragnarok, but I get you.
Right. So I think I can see why people would be like, come on, it's a space drama like the original movies. There's not a whole lot of humor like that I remember anyways. Mm-hmm. And so they want to take it seriously. They want it to be a serious space odyssey, right?
Yeah.
But I think even movies like the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies, the sequel trilogy, it's okay. Like you're getting your drama, you're getting your space opera, you're getting the emotional sides of things, and then, like the scenes with Han Solo and Leia and all that sort of stuff. And then you're getting humor too. And as long as they don't overdo it in any one department and they pepper it through, you're fine. Mm-hmm. But the problem is what happens when you go overboard. And I feel like Disney eventually is going to get so either A, they're going to get too ballsy with all of it, and they're gonna make a movie that's, come on, the humor, like this wasn't the time or place, right? Or they'll get so set in their formula that it'll be like, all right, we're gonna do 5 minutes of this, and then ha ha ha, and then we're gonna do this action scene, punchline, ha ha ha, and it'll be too formulaic, and it'll just get boring.
But the humor inside Rise of Skywalker really wasn't that boring. It just started off the movie with some humor, kind of built up a little bit of emotion, and then once things started to slow down, so did the humor.
Right.
And it just kicked in.
Right.
I kind of think it was placed in there well, but like he said, some of the jokes maybe.
When it got to the last like 30 minutes and it was like epic fight, major thing, I don't remember a whole lot of jokes. Pretty much, I don't really. I mean, C-3PO might have been the last of it.
I think once he got his mind wiped, the jokes kind of died off.
Yeah, and then it was like, okay, serious time, final battle, light versus dark, epic themes. You know, not a whole lot of space for the jokes there anymore. So, taking it back, so Kylo Ren is going planet to planet looking for this wayfinder to figure out how to get to Exegol. I don't know, maybe it explained it in the text screen. How does Kylo Ren know about the wayfinder? How does he know? Maybe Palpatine like told them that he's at Exegol and this is how to find me, but I missed that, I guess. But either way, Kylo Ren's going planet to planet, and you see him pulling people in with the Force, stabbing them, fucking them up. You know, that unnamed planet of species. I mean, he's just slaughtering people left and right. How did you feel about Kylo Ren's, like, his introduction in this movie? Because we've seen him be whiny little bitch. We've seen him be, you know, I'm trying to be Vader, you know, 2.0. And now he's killed Snoke. He's the supreme leader. And did you feel like his character development, even at the beginning of the movie, did you feel like he was more of a threat, more badass, or still just eh?
I definitely think Kylo Ren, played by Adam Driver, did an excellent job on this movie. It definitely strayed away from trying to be like Anakin the whiny bitch, trying to be someone.
Yeah.
I definitely think that he was more badass. There were some moves in there that had me like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job doing Kylo Ren in this movie for sure. If not, he's probably my favorite character in this movie.
Honestly, I think his character development is better than Rey's.
Yeah.
I think it's better than anybody. Finn, Poe, like his story arc, going from clearly wanting the acceptance of Snoke and wanting to make Snoke proud and make Vader proud and live up to Vader's, you know, persona. That was the whole first movie. And that's why he seemed like a whiny little bitch, because he's trying to be all these other people instead of coming into his own. Mm-hmm. The second movie, he's still at odds with Luke and, you know, what he did to Han and all this other stuff. So he's still trying to make Snoke proud. He's trying to not make Luke proud, but trying to show Luke, like, look what I made myself out of, you know. So it still comes across as whiny and bitchy and all this, you know, on top of his screaming from the 18. This movie, even in his interactions with Rey, he's not crying, he's not screaming, he doesn't ever really get emotional. Like, even when he's talking to Rey, he's just like,
control.
He's in control. He's angry, and you can tell he's like dark or whatever, but he's just doing it. Even when he's talking to Rey, he's talking to Rey kind of like Vader would talk to Rey, or talk to Luke in Episode 6, when he's like, join me, the dark side. You don't understand the power of the dark side. Like, just very matter of fact, not emotional. Just, I'm a badass.
Yeah, and they did it without repeating old movies, like kind of making you feel like, oh, that's exactly like how Vader talked to Luke. And it just kind of seemed like that.
Right. And when Kylo would do something, like even when he's getting out and he's doing some sort of action, when he's fighting Rey, even if he didn't necessarily beat Rey, which we'll get to that, but he went in very sure of himself and he knew he was powerful and all that, and he didn't get bitched. You know, they didn't turn him into like a bitch in the sense that like Rey beats him and he's all like, you know, his hair's all disheveled, or he gets made a fool of, or he looks like he didn't execute a plan, like he had a plan and he just doesn't know how to execute it. Everything he did, even if it didn't end up in a total victory, it never made him lose face. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna let her go right now because I'm confused about what just happened, you know? So, I don't know. So then he gets to Palpatine's, he gets to Exegol, he walks in, and we get a lot of exposition dump there Palpatine starts answering some things. First of all, he's the voice that has always been inside of Kylo's head. So he's been Snoke. Snoke was a body that Palpatine's growing in a fucking pickle jar.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna steal that from Angry Joe. They're like, you got a couple pickled Snokes just sitting there in the thing. I thought that was funny. But I mean, they're growing these Snokes in a pickle jar.
Yep.
And really, that's just a body that Palpatine was like using the Force to control and stuff. But he uses his voice, he uses Snoke's voice, and then he even transitions into Vader's voice. So it's kind of going back and saying all the times that Kylo thought he was talking to the spirit of Darth Vader through the helmet, that was really Darth Sidious the entire time. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about Sidious? Like, do you feel like that was shoehorned in there, or do you feel like they've set that up as Sidious has been in control the entire time? He's been there through all of Episode 7. He never went away.
Definitely, you didn't see anything in Episode 7. Maybe I just need to rewatch it and maybe catch something. But nothing definitely memorable. To be honest with you, I don't think there was anything in Episode 7. Episode 8, kind of the same thing, but there was one thing that I pointed out to him as well after the movie was that towards the end of the movie, Luke has already vanished and all that. Ray gets out of the cave. Talk about Episode 8. Everything's like kind of diffused. Snoke's dead. Yet Ray and Kylo are still having a connection that Snoke said he set up, which Palpatine's talking through Snoke.
And he set it up. He made that connection.
He made that connection. So you could possibly say that's one right there.
Yeah.
But other than that one thing, there's nothing else in the entire series.
So this is to build off that. So Snoke says that in Episode 8. I can't quote it, but he didn't say I helped it or anything. He's like, I made that bond. I bridged your minds. Okay? But then Palpatine, by the end of this movie, sits there and he looks at them and he goes, a dyad, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's kind of like a revelation to him almost that they're two in one. So I wonder if that's just sloppy Rian Johnson and they tried to cover it, they tried to fix it. Because it definitely seems to me like Palpatine didn't create the dyad. That's just there. And I don't feel like he created it necessarily, but I feel like what you're saying, I feel like that power, that bond, comes from being the dyad. And they haven't covered it in the new lore yet. I don't think. I think it's old lore, but there's a belief that either Pelagus, which would be Sidious's master, or Darth Sidious created Anakin Skywalker. That's the Immaculate Birth. That's why there's no father, right?
Yeah.
And Shmi Skywalker. So if you want to look at it like that, technically, Kylo Ren is a descendant of Palpatine also. And then Rey, of course, is his granddaughter from actual sexual birth.
I've never thought about that. Yeah.
So, still, that whole thing to me is a little bit of a mess. But the thing is, I was talking to a guy and he was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, everyone was always thinking that Snoke was, he might be Sidious." I'm like, we thought it. We as people thought it, but they didn't set that up in the movie.
Yeah.
They didn't set that up in the story. Nowhere in Episode 7, he was just a random person. We were like, who is that? We thought he was going to be Pelagus, or we thought might be the Emperor in some weird way, right? And then you get to Episode 8, and they just killed him. Still no story. Still no background. So they still didn't set that up. So now you're like, okay, now I'm really confused. He's not Pelagus. Like, did he just die? That was my takeaway from when I walked away from the theaters in Episode 8 was, so they're just not going to explain him? Like, they set him up for nothing? And now they've explained him, but this is the first time they've explained him or hinted to anything that he's connected, So I don't feel like that was there. So either way, so moving forward from that scene, now we finally, so he talks to Ben, to Kylo, and he tells him, we don't see it, but off screen he tells him, Rey is, my granddaughter, she's a Palpatine. Kylo goes off to go find her and try to kill her, bring her home, whatever. Jumps over to Rey, and I could have these two scenes switched, It might have jumped to Poe and Finn first, but I think it jumped to Rey first. Maybe. Anyways, so Rey and Leia are training. How do you feel about Leia being a master in the Force, strong enough to train Rey now?
I think that was definitely thrown in the last movie.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's unbelievable. To me, it's not. It's that they've never, in episode 7 or 8, showed us that.
Even mentioned it in episode 6 way back when.
Yeah, they didn't say, hey, I'm going to train you. They just said she has the power. I know in Legends and in comics and stuff like that, she's trained and all that. Even in 7 and 8, it's not maybe they did say something about her training with him, but I don't think they ever emphasized it. Like, Luke had a Jedi Academy, and maybe she was there, but if there was, they made it seem like she dabbled in it for a second, and then she was like, nah, you know, and she went and did the general thing instead.
If she was a Jedi Master, why didn't she just train Kylo herself?
Yeah, like, and I get she walked away from it and left the lightsaber because she saw the death of her son or something like that was the vision. But how is that not mentioned in 7 or 8?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. By 9, they're like, we have to fix some things. She used the Force power in episode 8 to bring herself from, you know, space, Superman
Still
back in the building. And yeah, that's still cringy. I don't care whether she was trained or not. That was a bad scene. But so it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I don't even have a problem with it. She's trained as a Jedi Master, awesome. I just think they should have explained that from the beginning. That should have been a better storytelling. Because if they would have said that in episode 7, or even, you know, hey, she was trained but she doesn't do it anymore for whatever reason, that would okay.
They didn't even need to explain. Like,
they don't even need to explain it. They could have just touched on it, but because they didn't, and the first time we ever see her use the Force
was in episode 8.
Was 8, and she uses it in such a dumb way. Now that they've said, yeah, Luke did train her and she is a master and all this other stuff, it's like, okay.
When I watched 8, I actually believed when I saw that was the first time Leia's ever touched up on using the Force.
Yeah, I didn't.
It seemed like, to me, it felt like she's never used it before. Everybody was surprised. She was surprised.
Right. I thought in that scene she was like, she knew she was fucked, and she was like, let me try to use the Force, and she used the Force to bring herself in. Mm-hmm. And because she's a Skywalker, she's strong enough, she doesn't need training, she can do it. But now they're saying, well, he trained her, and
why hasn't she used it before?
Yeah. And then you gotta also, like, okay, I'm gonna jump ahead, but when Luke Skywalker, who is, by all accounts, even in Legends, I don't think it's ever been disputed, he's way more powerful with the Force than Leia is. Mm-hmm. And he was trained by Master Yoda, trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi, trained by himself. He actually dedicated his life to the way of the Jedi, where Leia went and made a family, which, of course, having sex and being in love and all that stuff is against the Jedi Code, whatever. Which, again, fanboys of the Legends are going to say, well, Luke Skywalker had 17 different love interests. Okay, whatever, I don't know. But still, she went and she was a general in the Republic more than she was a Jedi. Mm-hmm. Luke became a Jedi. And it killed this motherfucker to force, whatever they call that, when he sent that vision of himself off to Kylo Ren, right, in episode 8. And he died from that. And Leia, who had a little bit of training 30 years ago when she was still young with Luke, before, you know, whatever. Okay. Fuck.
Continue.
Leia, who had such little training, well, let's even say, okay, she's a Jedi Master, whatever, but she was able to do this Force thing, not as good as Luke, but it killed her, and she was able to put Han Solo out there for Kylo Ren to see. So it's just one of those things where I feel like they didn't develop Leia as a Jedi enough until this movie, and then all of a sudden she's using Force, you know, powers that are
everything. Force everything,
and she's a master. And you know, I'm not saying she's not wise. She could definitely be a role model for Leia or for Rey. She could use the Force. She could be a Jedi Master. It's just
and skilled with the lightsaber.
You could have shown her doing those things in 7 and 8, and this is another one of those things that I just feel like, again, that text scroll. Leia's a Jedi Master. Emperor's back, and you're like, did I miss something? You know? So, either way, I thought the training sequence was cool. I thought immediately they set up that Kylo and her still have that bond, and they can kind of peek in on each other. It's a little weird, right? If I'm Kylo Ren, I'm probably, wait until she's in the shower or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird, like the way they set that up, but whatever. But you can tell that it's still bothering her, and she's struggling with that little droid thing. Her training route that she ran through, I was like, okay, so she went for a jog. She flipped over a log, like.
She never really had any setbacks. Luke Skywalker lost his hand fighting Darth Vader the first time.
See, and J.J. Abrams has explained, like, he created Rey's character to be different than Luke. She's not going to have that struggle. She's not going to have the hero's journey. She's innately good with everything, and there was the reason. J.J. says that he always knew that she was going to be the granddaughter of Palpatine or whatever. She's supposed to be powerful with everything, so everything just comes easy to her. And her problem, her struggle, isn't going to be going from being farm boy to Jedi Master. It's going to be, hey, I'm already really fucking good with all this stuff. It's just where do I fit in the world as a young woman and, as an outcast and an orphan and all this other shit. So, okay, it's just not as interesting of a story as the farm boy hero's journey. So either way, so Rey training with Leia, okay, we moved on from that. Again, that scene happens so fast, it's all so quick that it doesn't have time to really, there's not a lot there to analyze.
Yeah.
So then after that, we jump to Finn and Poe, and they're meeting up with a mole, someone who can give them information from a mole within the First Order. There's some sort of snitch, rat, whatever you want to call it, in the First Order, giving them intel. They've met up with someone who has that intel on this weird-looking ice. It looked like the Titanic iceberg thing.
I thought that was Palpatine's planet, to be honest with you.
At first, yeah, but it's icy. It looks like an iceberg out in the middle of the planet, like an asteroid covered in ice. So they go there, they link the comm link, they get the intel, TIE fighters are hot on their ass, and then the stupidest story plot thing mechanic in this movie. Episode 8 had the bombers that makes no sense, the whole fucking battle, why would you keep your bombers that close? Whatever, right? This movie has this thing called hyperspace skipping. Hyper-skipping or whatever. And all of a sudden, Poe is able to take the Millennium Falcon, go into hyperspace, jump into some random space, jump out, and then jump back in. So he's just into hyperspace, out of hyperspace, into hyperspace, outer space, out of hyperspace. And every time he comes out of it and he goes back to normal speed, he's in the middle of a planet. He's in the middle of some atmosphere of a planet, and he's next to, poles and pylons and buildings and stuff, and it's like...
It was cool.
It's cool, but when you're thinking about it, Han Solo even did it, I think, one time, and he said, we're going to hyperspace into a planet's atmosphere, and it's super dangerous. Okay, so Poe can do it, apparently. He knows how to do it, and he's doing it all. He's spamming it. And what kills me is these 3 TIE fighters are doing it with him. It's such a difficult maneuver. It's so crazy. But these 3 random Imperial TIE fighters are also able to do it. And of course they die and they blow up too, but it's just okay. And the Millennium Falcon, obviously, it's on fire when they land it. He's pushed it to its limit, but...
I just want to know how they were able to go through that ice. Hyper jump. Hyper jump?
Yeah, they hyperspace through it. And maybe it's a thin wall, but it's still, the whole... They have fucked hyperspace up in the sequel trilogy because they used it as a weapon in Episode 8 and destroyed the Star Destroyer. And I'm like,
it was cool.
I'm like, why didn't you just take one of your big ships and hyperspace it through the Death Star then? If that was take down the shield, hyperspace through the Death Star.
Suicide.
You have fucked everything with that one maneuver. And then in this movie, they're like, last time we fucked up hyperspace, this time let's just add hyperspace skipping. And then we're always going to wonder, why has nobody done that? And you could say, well, advancements in technology and, people understand hyperspace better. I'm like, okay, but then how the fuck are these TIE fighters following them through it? Obviously it's not so hard because people are doing it. So...
They were doing it like it was an everyday thing.
That's one of those things, again, if you're just going to watch a Star Wars movie, is that going to bother you? Not really. Does it ruin the movie for me? Not really. It's just one of those things I kind of rolled my eyes, was like, okay. So they get away, and now they're back on the planet with Rey and Poe. I can't read that. We have our notes here. meet up at the rebel base. Okay, so they met up at the rebel base. Okay, so here's where I feel like this sequel trilogy struggles the most. And again, it's partly to blame on episode 8, a large chunk of it. You get your main characters back together. And this movie doesn't split them up like episode 8 does. Finn doesn't go on his own mission, while Poe's over here on his mission, fucking shit up for no reason, and Rey's on her own mission. They're all together, and they're going to go on this mission together. And by the way, they're going to take 3PO and BB-8 and Chewbacca with them. I thought that was cool. So they brought the cast together. The problem is now when they get all together on that planet and they're interacting with each other, the movie's trying to build this friendship between them, like they're all great friends. And there's still conflict between them because Poe is complaining, you need to come out. He's saying to Rey she should be out on the battlefield with him instead of back here training. There's no reason to be training. So they're trying to set up that conflict, and she's complaining about him hyperspace jumping and stuff like that. And then there's this weird dynamic between her and Finn. But the thing is, we just don't care because they weren't together. Like they were barely together in the first movie. They had her and Finn set up together. That was a good relationship. But then the whole second movie, they're split up. So now you're here in the third movie and you're put back together and you're supposed to believe that they had this great relationship like Han, Luke, and Leia did in Chewbacca. And even Lando Calrissian. And it's just not the same. You don't care.
One thing I might have missed, I might have overlooked it, and maybe it just, I saw it but didn't think of anything. Did Kylo still have that scar on his face?
He did. He did, and it didn't change.
It didn't change?
It didn't change. Now, I don't know if everybody knows this. I didn't know it when I was watching the movie, but this entire movie takes place in 16 hours from start to finish. Kylo finds the Emperor, and within 16 hours, Rey goes through her whole journey and also finds the Emperor, and they topple the Emperor. So it's like you're the Emperor, you're waiting 30 years for everyone to show up, and they showed up in 16 hours and just fucking killed you, man. Like,
no wonder why he said I've died multiple times.
Right. And that's why that's why it feels so speedy and it's jumping everywhere. And then you think about the timeline, you're just like, oh my god. Like, how many planets did they go and visit in 16 hours on top of that? But whatever.
Yeah.
So
I think as well, it was quite cheesy in this movie how there's only 2 wayfinders. How it was set up for 2 people to be able to do it, and those 2 people happen to be Kylo and Ray.
Right.
I thought that was kind of just a give me free ticket for the heroes or main characters.
So they decide to go to this desert planet and pick up on it. And okay, so they're discussing Palpatine. Okay, so no, let's stop. They're at the Rebel base. After they get past that weird interaction with each other, all the rebels get together with Leia, with all these other characters, and they're discussing Palpatine's back. And when they said Palpatine's back, and everyone's like, and like, whatever, right? I just felt, again, like, it was such a weird...
I honestly felt like I could have written the story better.
I was like, that's everybody's reaction to this Emperor being back? Like, I don't know. It just feels so strange and out of character, the whole movie. But so they say that, they come up with a plan, and they're trying to figure out how to get to Exegol and these Wayfinder things. And Rey happens to know in these ancient texts that she took from Octo that Luke was actually looking for these things. And so again, J.J. Abrams fixes Rian Johnson's bullshit by saying, hey, Luke didn't really give up. And Luke wasn't like, the entire time he was out there, he was still trying to find Palpatine. And somehow Luke knew that Palpatine was alive. I
never said anything.
Never said anything, but whatever. What do I know? Maybe, okay, technically the movie says he's looking for Exegol, the Sith planet. So maybe he was looking for that and didn't know the Emperor was alive, but...
And this is also another thing that kind of, like, makes me think that this was not set up at all, is that if Luke was really been trying to find Palpatine this entire time, and this whole time he's still actually going on about something, why did, when Rey finally met Luke, hands out the lightsaber and Luke immediately starts crying? Like, oh no, it's all back again.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah, and he clearly was shut down. He clearly was a hermit and wanted to cut himself off from the Force.
Yeah.
And he admits that he was wrong or whatever about all that, but Still, either way, so they introduce the Wayfinder. She just happens to know exactly where it was in the book and says, let's go to this planet where Luke, his trail went cold on this whole thing. So they go to this desert festival. I like the desert festival scene. Again, it felt very Star Wars. They introduced these little kids that looked like strange anteater elephants. Big old heads, but they were endearing. I liked them. I liked the festival. I thought that was cool. And then, of course, Kylo and Ray have another Force Bond moment, and he grabs the necklace off of her, and they analyze that shit. Again, the movie takes 16 hours, so they probably did that in like 30 minutes. It was like, oh, she's on this planet during this festival that happens. So the First Order that's already on that planet moves in, and drama ensues. Lando Calrissian comes out and says, come this way, and pulls him out of the crowd.
Yep.
Again, Lando Calrissian, I thought that was a cool introduction. But the Desert Festival, they go through this weird chase scene, which I thought was dumb, because they're getting shot at by these stormtroopers with the jetpacks, and they're trying to shoot back, and they don't use the Force. Just use the Force, like slam the guy down or destroy his jetpack or something, and then all of a sudden they're done.
I mean, if it's Rey, she probably could have just sat there, closed her eyes, and meditated for a second, and shut down the whole jetpack. Just completely EMP'd the system.
Exactly, and people are like, "Well, she's struggling with her force powers." I'm like, "No, she was clearly using she's levitating rocks. What's the difference between levitating rocks? Not every time she uses her force powers does she shoot out lightning. The only reason that lightning thing happens a couple minutes later with Kylo Ren is because she's in the middle of a force struggle and she's being pushed to her limits. That would not have pushed her to her limits. She could have done that just fine.
Yeah.
But whatever." Or like our dad said, why doesn't she just, like, even if they're going to be shooting at her, if Luke can use the Force to aim a proton missile into the Death Star, why can't she just aim a fucking blaster? Whatever. Again, if they use the Force to solve every problem, there wouldn't be a movie, I guess, because it wouldn't matter. I mean, we saw Kylo Ren stop he force stopped all the blaster fire at him on episode 7.
Even in the first 10 minutes of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, if you did that, which I get why Luke Skywalker didn't do that in A New Hope, because he wasn't good with the Force yet, and he didn't really have a problem with blasters being shot at him in episode 6. But Rey, in this movie, when they're coming through, at first when they came out of the Millennium Falcon at that part, and they just storm this Imperial thing, and they shoot the 2 people, and they clear out the hangar. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure everyone had to sneak around and wear stormtrooper outfits in episode 4, and here we're just gonna go fucking guns blazing. But really, when you think about it, if you have Rey with you, she can just put a force shield around everybody, and those blaster bullets are never getting through.
Yeah.
So again, there wouldn't be a movie if they did stuff like that. But
that's the danger of having someone who doesn't have an arc.
Exactly.
Doesn't have any failure. Someone who's just immediately overpowered.
And if you have that arc, then you have episode 4 where we understand why Luke doesn't do it, because he's not good with it yet. By episode 6, my dude should be fucking force choking Gamorrean guards and slaying all sorts of shit, mind tricks and all sorts of stuff. So Desert Festival, they do the chase scene, and then they just happen to land right in the quicksand that they needed to land in. Seems like danger, seems like they're getting sucked into quicksand. Nope, it's exactly where they needed to be to find the dagger they were looking for. Again, lazy storytelling on my part, on my opinion. What did you think that was lazy or? Yeah.
And the dagger that they found in there, I did see what you were saying, how is that ancient, but lines up perfectly with the Death Star that crashed 30 years ago?
Right, so the idea of there's this dagger, Sith dagger, ancient dagger, and on that dagger they've inscribed the location of this thing.
Wayfinder.
Again, now I'm just okay. So if it's in the Death Star with Palpatine, we're gonna get into this thought process of this because this thing really just pisses me off. It's in the Death Star in Palpatine's throne room, right to the right. The Death Star has only been constructed for 30 years. So, He uses the dagger. There's a weird little protractor thing that comes out, and when you line the protractor up with the bottom of, whatever, I think it was the edge of the Death Star, and then the dagger itself fits with the rubble of the Death Star, and you're like, okay, that's where I need to go. So A, it's not ancient, because the Death Star and the dagger, for that to be accurate, would have had to have been built.
And why?
At the earliest it could have been built is when the Death Star was built. As otherwise you wouldn't know it was in the Death Star because there was no Death Star. And the latest it could be built is after the Death Star was destroyed because it would fit perfectly with that, it would have to be, the pieces would already have to be on that moon. So it's not an ancient Sith thing. Second, why? Yeah. Why build that? You're Emperor Palpatine. You know that your fucking Wayfinder is over here on, this planet, or is in your Death Star right next to your throne room. Why create a transcription on a dagger for someone to find your Wayfinder?
Yeah.
Who made the dagger, and for what purpose? Who else is writing Sith, stuff? Unless the Emperor wanted people to find it, but then why make it so hard to find it in the first place?
Yeah. And then it really was. The beginning is definitely a mess.
There's so much shit that happens just to make the plot make sense. They're like, hey, here's the Emperor, and we need to find the Emperor, but we can't make it. You can't just fly there, so we have to make it hard.
Yeah.
But we're gonna make it hard, but at the same time, we're gonna just hand all of the solutions to these people. And I was explaining to him, episode 4, episode 5, even episode 6, Luke Skywalker says, hey, I'm gonna help you, Ben Kenobi, find Princess Leia. We're gonna save the princess. So they go save the princess. But in the process, they get captured by the tractor beam of the Death Star. Well, shit, now we're on the Death Star. We're in danger. We have to figure out how to find the princess. They put the stormtrooper uniforms on. They get the princess. Oh shit, more danger. The stormtroopers have found us, so we're going to shoot a hole in this air vent. We're going to jump down that. We got away, but oh shit, more danger, And the story keeps going, and everything that happens is happening naturally. It's a natural evolution of a story. They finally get off of the Death Star. They get back to their rebel base, and now it's like, okay, we got the rebel base, we got Princess Leia, we got the plans from the R2 unit. Now what do? We can destroy the Death Star. And so the last end of that movie is, let's go destroy the Death Star. That all makes sense. This movie is the same thing. Like, we want to go destroy the Emperor, but in order to do that, there's all these series of quests. There's obstacles, but they give you all of the solutions. They give you a fucking coin that lets you fly anywhere. They give you this. There's apparently a Wayfinder, and again, Angry Joe points out, and I didn't even think about that. When Kylo Ren finds his Wayfinder on that planet, he just plugs that shit in straight to his TIE Fighter. His TIE Fighter is already ready to read this ancient Sith hologram thing. Like, it has a USB fucking port. Like, it just magically plugged in. Like, that doesn't make sense, but whatever.
Save us on time, let's go ahead and jump on to when they went to the next planet, when they laid low. And everything is already crazy over there. They're having a hide, they're sneaking around, and they're trying to find someone who can make C3PO, is that his name, right?
Yeah, C3PO, they're trying to get Sith, because he can't translate Sith, which made sense. I was like, okay, I get that. So they're trying to figure out a way to do that, and he's going to get memory wipe. So they went and they found Poe's ex-girlfriend,
whatever,
Spice Runner or whatever chick, and that little dude. I like that little dude.
That little dude is the best part of the entire series.
There's a lot of characters that Star Wars creates just for marketing, like the new droid. That's just to sell another toy. The Knights of Ren.
He's a toy.
Unnecessary. Yeah.
That little guy, he's a toy I'd buy.
No, I would buy the Knights of Ren toy, but did you need it? Captain Phasma.
No,
most inconsequential character in all of Star Wars history, and yet in the center of so much hype and so much promotional and marketing material just to sell a silver fucking stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Who didn't do anything and wasn't even good at fighting and whatever. So, but that little dude, I was like, man, that's fucking funny. I like that. And C-3PO, when they reboot him, and he's like, my name is C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. And it's a complete quote from the original movie. I love that. I thought that was cool. And everyone else is like, everyone else in the movie, the characters are like, here we go. That's unfortunate. Whatever, right? Their reactions are kind of bland. Who cares?
Yeah.
And then that little dude's like, hi! my name is blah blah blah. And you're just like, God damn it. So, I like that character. And then we skipped one thing. We do have to go back to the desert planet because as they're escaping, Ray is trying to pull the ship that has Chewbacca back down. Right. Kylo's like, I'm not gonna make it that easy for you. I'm gonna pull it. They're force fighting over it, and all of a sudden, because she pushed her limits, she shoots out this force lightning, and that was my sign. I leaned over to him. I said, because I'd seen spoilers before, and I said to him, I was like, they're doing it. She's gonna be Ray Palpatine. She just used force lightning. Mm-hmm. But she blows up that transport, and everyone thinks Chewie's dead. Now me, I guess I'm retarded because I didn't process that. Maybe it's because so much was happening so fast still. I didn't even think Chewie was dead. I just automatically assumed he had survived that explosion. I didn't think he was on a different transport. I just didn't think he was dead. Yeah. Everyone else who watched that movie and has talked to me about it, they're like, I was so pissed because I was like, did they just kill fucking Chewbacca? And I was like, I didn't even process that. But turns out he's not dead. There's a second transport that you do see in the background, so it's not even like that was really that shoehorned in. But I don't know, like I didn't have an emotional response to it. I think maybe he had more of one, or at least he thought more about it. What did that scene do to you?
The first thing I thought was, I don't remember if it was you or Dad that said that Chewbacca is the only one that's still alive. Like, human-wise, or living-wise. Right. That's still in the series from all the way from episode 1 all the way to here. He's the only one that's still alive. And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw him die. I was like, well, lives no longer.
Lives no longer.
I actually thought he was dead. Didn't really have an emotional effect because I've seen him forever now.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a huge connection to Chewbacca.
And maybe I'm just even if I thought he died, I think I would have prepared for it because I've already seen Luke and Ray, and Han Solo die. Carrie Fisher, who plays Leia, is already dead. So
now,
real life.
If R2D2 died, that'd have been a different feeling.
Yeah. But I didn't even process. I didn't even acknowledge that he was dead. So I didn't miss that. But I think it killed. Even if I did, I think it was so cheap that it was a sleight of hand. Like, that one transport in the background. That's where Chewbacca was, and you're just like, you cheated. You tricked everyone into thinking that was a thing. It was a sleight of hand maneuver that wasn't even real. Like, and then
it didn't even show you that.
And then 2 minutes later, if even, Chewbacca's on an Imperial ship and he's alive. Like,
and it didn't even show you how he survived. The only way you would know is if you went back and watched it. Like, the only way you'd know how he survived is if you went back and watched the movie.
Well, if they say it. They say that he was on a different transport or whatever. But still, I don't know. Anyway, I think that was a cheap ploy to fuck with people's emotions a little bit.